morning and welcome to this week's episode of LevelUp Cyber Live. My name is Tony Bryan. I am your host for the day, and I'm super excited to be joined by Matt Peterson with GuidePoint Security today. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Tony. Good morning, everyone.
A little different time. We're joining you in the morning, so I'm excited to spend the next 30 minutes with you guys and have a great conversation around, I think, the age-old tale that I've heard time and time again over the last 7 years is how do I actually break into this world of cybersecurity? It's the number one thing that everybody's been trying to figure out, from community colleges to boot camps, nonprofits across the country, and it seems to be elusive for a lot of folks. But we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we get started, Matt, I'd love to have you just introduce yourself. Tell everybody, maybe a little bit about your journey. It's always such a great, kind of segue into it.
Yeah, sure. No problem, Tony. Thank you. I broke into cybersecurity. At the time, it wasn't called cybersecurity. It was called IT security. We were solving an IT problem at the time. So we're talking the year 2000. So a little different challenge back then compared to now, where there was just simply an unknown element to IT security at that point in time. So there weren't a whole lot of jobs available at the time. So I was doing my own homework, my own research. I was running, at the time, there were a couple network scanning utilities where, traditional network of today, there was actually 2 or 3 options at the time, whether depending upon which technology and version you were running, but we were scanning these networks looking for vulnerabilities. So that really kind of pushed me into the world of IT security and understanding, hey, what vulnerabilities exist and why would people use these for their own advantages? So that's, I then compiled a short list of organizations at the time that were doing this type of work. I was in Kansas City, Missouri at the time, and I had identified a couple of companies in which I really wanted to see if I could leverage, what I knew, which wasn't a whole lot, but I was self-taught, self-motivated. And so I interviewed for a couple different roles. In fact, the one role that I thought I was going to get, I got turned down for. Only a week later, they called me back and said, hey, would you be interested in this job? And I thought, absolutely, yes, I'll take anything in IT security at the time. So just to give you an idea of what that was, I was the 34th employee for this company at the time. So at that point in time, I just said, yes, I'll take that role because I want to learn what it is they're offering me and then use that as a platform in order to, expand my career. And so it's worked out for me. Been doing this for over 20 years. I know I don't look like it. My wife says that all the time, like, why do you not age yet? I age. And so I spent my birthday over the weekend and rubbing that in with her. So yeah, 20 years in cyber. I know there's a slide put up for everyone to read. I'm currently a partner, which means I'm an owner within GuidePoint Security. We're a cyber security solutions provider. I know that's a mouthful, but we work with customers in order to identify technologies and solutions and provide services purely around cybersecurity.
Nice. So what's a piece of advice, right? Like there's been so many different ways in which somebody could jump into this as a career, right? Whether it's a traditional path of just, regular college, or, some of your more non-traditional paths, maybe a boot camp or a pre-apprenticeship program, right? Like, do you find that you have a preference of where somebody's gaining skills, or, what are you looking for, in the people that you're trying to bring onto your team and in your organization?
Yeah, it's really understanding and qualifying a person's sense of passion and ability to hustle and work. A lot of folks really believe that, a barrier of entry into cybersecurity is education. And, I'm not going to, debate college degrees. I have one. How I utilize it probably varies. But when it comes to cybersecurity, experience is ultimately what matters. Later in life, yes, your college degree is going to help you. But getting into cyber is all relative to experience and what you know in order to get a position within the industry. The industry today, when I started, there's probably 5 different technologies that I could interface with and work with and manipulate in order to really protect the network that I was asked to protect. Today, I believe a lot of times folks are up against just this overwhelming plethora of what is cybersecurity. There are so many domains and so many specializations within cyber that, one, it can be confusing. It can be a little scary, but at the end of the day, everyone is here to learn. And so if you pick up and adapt and adopt one element just in one given area that you really gravitate towards, and I can walk through a lot of these domains and provide you a lot of context. So I know in the slide that you're looking up that Tony can put up, if you reach out to me, I can really help you and kind of guide you in various areas if you're interested in these different realms as far as, you know, who you are as a person or what you like doing. I can really help map, like, hey, why don't you look here or look here? There's a lot of ability to teach yourself. There's a lot of there's so many resources available for you once you get involved. So it's a matter of just getting involved, finding something that you gravitate towards and putting your arms around it and learning it. And you can be a self-taught expert and then understand how that piece fits into the overall cyber ecosystem.
Yeah. I think, you know, what you, even your own journey you had a couple of years ago, right? Where like you probably didn't take the initially get the job that you were envisioning, right? Like, and I find that 90% of the folks that would come into a CyberUp program or even into whatever program they decide to go into, pen testing and SOC, right, are always top of that list. Everybody wants to be a pen tester. And I think there's this perceived cool factor, right, that comes with those jobs, you know, and you just mentioned some of the domains that are out there, right? What advice would you give to somebody who's, you know, dialed in, I want to do this very specific thing, but they're having a hard time breaking into that, you know, that function? What advice would you give them?
Well, so I hire a lot of different folks and a lot of engineers, and we evaluate them, you know, not just on what they're interviewing for and what they know. So you take pen testing as an example. You can run Metasploit on your own, and you can pick up how to scan and how to run canned responses and attacks. But it's the knowledge of how these different systems work, whether it's a traditional server workstation or if it's cloud computing, or you're talking about just how services talk and how you can manipulate how those machines and applications talk to one another. So there's tools out there that expedite the ability to do pen testing, and you can teach yourself how to do that. You can be a red teamer, purple teamer, blue teamer. That is all great. At the end of the day, where you have the most value is understanding how to manipulate these systems. And once you have a finding, how to then translate that into something where you can get domain access, because you can stitch, you know, two vulnerabilities together in order to say, okay, I've got something here. I've seen this happen before. And unfortunately, that's where experience really takes hold. Now, everyone starts somewhere. You know, GuidePoint is one organization, just like there's other competitors of mine that I know and I've worked with and have known these guys for years. We all have programs where, you know, once you have skill sets and the ability to learn, and we see that within a person, we'll certainly hire and teach them that experience that we know. And we love just watching people develop, because, you know, once someone knows something, they have the ability to learn, and then we sprinkle on what we know and how we do it. And then that person just shoots off from there in their own light. And you're like, yes, this is working. So one thing I sometimes, I will say, man, I wish I was a doctor. You know, there's no more bones being created in our bodies. Like, doctors have it easy. They learn one thing and they get really good at it. And in cyber, you learn one thing and it's no longer that thing after 3 to 5 years. The industry's already changed again and morphed. So back to what I said when I first started in the industry, it was all IT security related, traditional firewalling, blocking and tackling technologies, where today in cyber, that's just not the case. I mean, with cloud computing, containers, and how we have just endless amounts of API calls.
Yeah, we had a talk for Tech Week here in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. Joe Blanchard had given a presentation and talked about all of the tools that exist, right, over the last, that are out there. And he broke it down, I think, into 5 or 6 different categories of AI, software development, security, and just like in the billions of dollars that have been spent, right, on creating, to your point, the APIs and the technology to support it. So it really does become this continual battle for the Matts of the world to like keep up on all those skills, right? Because the next newest toy or shiny software is going to come up that's going to be the silver bullet that solves everybody's problems. And we know that doesn't technically exist, right? Let's be honest. We wish it did, but it doesn't necessarily technically exist. Let's run through a scenario, and it's probably timely given that it's May, right? We just talked about schools ending for many kids this year, the next week or so. What advice would you give to some of these, students that are out there wrapping up a 4-year degree or maybe a 2-year degree? What should they be doing on their end to get that first role?
Yeah, I would suggest, there's different resources out there. One of the longer running certifications is CISSP. I'm not advocating for getting that certification. I certainly got it. But what helps, in an older series of books, the CISSP for Dummies, if you break that down, it will show you all the domains within cybersecurity. And that is helpful in order for someone to really put their arms around the entire industry and understand, okay, this is something that I would gravitate towards. I want to dig in and learn this. But why I'm mentioning CISSP is that while you might gravitate towards like one domain in one area and all the technologies that fit in that area, you have to understand how it's all connected to the bigger picture and the bigger ecosystem of cyber. So if I have a summer coming up or just some additional time on my nights and weekends, I'm focusing in on an area that I believe I like. And you could, the resources that are available out there, you can take YouTube as an example, and I'll pick on Splunk. If you're not familiar with Splunk, simply said, they're a log aggregation tool. So if every device on your network or every application has the ability to create a log, Splunk can take that into a centralized conglomerate area, and there's different panes of glass that you can use to interact with that data to tell you what's going on in your environment. These Splunk engineers are highly sought after and highly needed today. Splunk years ago put all of their 101 level classes out on YouTube. So you're able to self-teach yourself Splunk. You can stand it up in your own environment and be able to interact and already put yourself that much further ahead than the next person in order to, potentially gain access to either an internship or a SOC position, so Security Operations Center. Today in our market, not to keep going down this rabbit hole, but managed services is large. And that is because rather than hiring, 10 to 20 SOC analysts around the clock, 24/7 to monitor their environment, organizations will hire a managed services organization to do that for them. And they start understanding and consuming all this log data, and SOC analysts then are able to monitor and see what's going on. What's great about that is, as a SOC analyst who may not have 5 to 10 years experience, you might just have 1 to 2 years of experience. You're starting to see in real time what these attacks are that are coming against these organizations. And then you learn real quick what the CERT process is. So every organization has an incident response team and those sets of procedures. And based upon certain events that you see coming within this SOC, you enact that CERT process, and you're able to learn that much more about an organization, the timeliness of a response, why it needs to be timely, and really how to put some controls around, what you're looking at. So that's just one example. The rest of your summer, you can map out various security conferences that are going on wherever you're from. Every market throughout the United States has a local security conference, whether it's put on by a particular vendor or a cybersecurity provider like GuidePoint Security. I know if St. Louis has an example. They do a Secure World. There's a Gateway to Innovation conference, and I'm missing probably about 3 or 4 others that happen throughout the year. So those are great networking opportunities to meet people that are purely in cyber, people that are hiring, folks that are looking for jobs to get into cyber. You get to meet and interact with the various technologies that are in every individual security domain. And then finally, and I probably have a slide for this, which can certainly be shared. If you're in St. Louis, St. Louis hosts what's called STL Sec. It happens on the second. Let me click through here, not to get to the bitter end. It happens on the second Wednesday of every month at the Fox and Hound inside the Cheshire Hotel, which is at Clayton and 40. St. Louis isn't unique to this by any means. Kansas City has one, Nashville has one, ChiSac. All larger markets have these security meetups. This is a great opportunity because I've gone to the St. Louis one for years. And it's very unassuming. No one's wearing, logoed shirts for the most part. So it's all up to you. I've met a number of folks that were in college or in graduate school, and they were coming to me asking, hey, how do I break in? And I start, making connections to other people at large organizations in the St. Louis community, or vendors that I've worked with who are, looking for various internships. So as long as you have the ability to network and get around and meet up with people, look at the first slide that Tony put up is my LinkedIn profile. I mean, I don't put it up there just so you can go look at what all I've done. You should immediately right away connect with me, send me a message and say, hey, I'm really looking to do this. Can you provide me some insight on how would I break into this? And I'm happy to jump on a call with you and discuss that.
The one thing, and kind of sticking in this theme that I've always even just personally struggled with is it's really hard to show your work, right, in cybersecurity. If I'm doing software development or I write code, right, I can get a GitHub account and I could put things up, so then I could drop a link on a resume or LinkedIn so people can go and review the quality of what I'm doing, right? It's a much harder thing to do, right? One, just the amount of domains that you referenced, and just what advice would you give for somebody, right? Let's say I am that college student. I took my summer, I learned Splunk, I learned a couple things and skills. How do I put that in a way that the Matts of the world or hiring managers of the world can, see the work that I've done or show the progress other than just taking my word for it?
It's a great question, Tony. I'm going to go back and actually use a slide here. So the best way to show your work in IT, and again, one element of cyber and how overwhelming it can be, is that we just like a continuation of IT, we speak in acronyms and folks get lost quickly. But once you immerse yourself in our industry, you'll pick this up. But to answer Tony's question, how to best show your work, there are so many certifications that that are hosted by non-technology partners, such as ISC Squared and ISAC and SANS, the SANS Institute puts on some great certifications. These are all how you show your work. Some require a certain time and seat in order to qualify to take the test. Sometimes you can take the test without having that years of experience in order to qualify. But then once you do qualify on the years of experience or someone vouches for you, you're able to get that. But these certifications all here that I'm showing are very important. So if me or any of my hiring managers or VPs are looking through resumes, these are very key, and we love seeing these, and that's certainly going to get you an interview. I don't have any of the technology specific certifications. So the Splunk example that I gave you, and by the way, Splunk is one of 2,000 to 3,000 vendors that are out there. Splunk is just one of the more name brand larger ones. But you could become certified, and there's 6 different Splunk certifications today, I believe. So, you could get that entry level Splunk certification, and that's great. And so anyone who sees that when you've got maybe a year, maybe less than a year of certification or of experience, maybe 0 experience, but you're getting involved. You're a member of your local OWASP chapter. I'll get into that in a minute, or ISC Squared or InfraGard. Get involved in the community and build your brand, and go out on LinkedIn and build your brand, and go out there and network and meet these people. Once you identify, where you think you'd like to specialize in today, there's also plenty of vendors. I'm giving you examples of traditional network technologies where there's the whole cloud security technologies that exist out there. Also, we could probably run through a 2 to 3 hour program just on that. But find your specialty, work to obtain a certification in that realm, because someone like myself is going to notice, say, hey, man, they're really putting in work here. They have a passion for this. I want to give this person a chance. Again, remember what I said early on. Yes, a degree is helpful, but my entire 20 years in cybersecurity, we don't hire based upon degrees. We hire based upon experience and ability to execute. Think about, as far-fetched as this sounds in this day and age, but like going to war. Do you want to go to war and you're going to battle with someone who went to college and learned about how to attack your enemy? Or would you rather fight alongside someone who's actually already, went through a mission once or twice?
I've met a lot of folks over the years that I think have felt they have done what you described, right? Attending the events and, doing CTFs and, diving into some of the learning, but they're still struggling to break in. And there's a lot of frustration for a lot of those folks, right?
Yep.
What advice would you give to somebody who maybe feels stuck in this cycle of I'm applying, but not getting the responses that I would like to get?
Yeah, it's really hard to apply just off of a website and get a response. I mean, you really, if that's a role that you really are working hard to get, you just have to network your way around and find someone, generally on LinkedIn. If it's an organization locally in your market, find someone who works at that organization and network your way around. That way they see you and they see your passion, they see your drive in order to, really want that job. One thing about our industry is that, yes, we're at a deficit. There's not enough talented people for the roles that we have to fill, which means there's a chance taken every day where someone's hired based upon their natural ability to learn and get the job done. And there's a certain element of training that's going to go along with that the company is going to invest time in order to train and teach you. So you really need to stick with it and persevere. It's okay to be told no. Don't be discouraged. Just keep sticking with it. keep learning and keep networking, because the right opportunity will come around. There are so many available jobs out there, and at the end of the day, there's so many resumes coming in that maybe a simple LinkedIn message, if you can figure out who the hiring manager is, I mean, do some homework. If you're applying for, entry level SOC position at Bayer Company, for example, in St. Louis, if you can network your way around on LinkedIn and figure out, all right, this is potentially the hiring manager, they're the SOC manager or SOC director, and send them a LinkedIn message and say you've applied for this role. Oftentimes, when you've applied for that role, it went to HR, and HR is trying to screen based on certain keywords. And your resume, right or wrong, may not have fallen through those keywords in order to ever hit the SOC manager or SOC director's desk, because they're out of 1,000 resumes, they're probably getting handed, 50. So, kind of have to use the system to your advantage. You can find those people on LinkedIn, send them messages. That would mean a lot to me. And I'm certainly going to pay more attention to someone who's doing that, because I feel like they are working hard to get the job.
So I'm gonna flip it just a second, and instead of focusing on the human side, right? So like, what advice would you give to employers? How do we make the industry, or maybe some of these roles, right, to your scenario of 1,000 resumes narrowed to 50, and there are probably 950 pretty decent people, right? Maybe not 950 might be a little ambitious, but there's probably some hidden gems within that maybe didn't check enough boxes in a KSA or a KPI for a resume. What advice would you give to employers that are looking to expand how they're hiring, the types of folks they're hiring beyond just kind of traditional, pathways or things they've been doing for so long?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen so many examples of this. And just last week, I had a conversation with someone, because right now I'm actively trying to help someone that I know get into the cybersecurity or the cyber industry. Well, they're not in cyber today, but I know them. I know their intuition. I know how they work, and they would make a great fit into cyber. They just need that chance. And I had the conversation with a hiring manager last week, and I just said, do you remember when you first ventured into cyber? And they're like, oh man, it was so hard. I wasn't in it at the time. I said, exactly. None of us were. We all came from somewhere. And I've got a number of stories, success stories that I could go on and on about. One, I'll give you one example. Years ago, there was a guy working at Burger King, of all places, and randomly was coming to a meetup, and they knew a lot about a particular technology, and we had a need for it, and we hired him, and he came to us from Burger King. It was one of the great. He's still in cybersecurity today. One of the best people I've ever worked with, and so I've seen it firsthand happen. So I look at this all the time, where I say, man, I want to know who these people are that are trying to break into cyber, what they gravitate towards, what they like, their ability to learn. And I want to try to help people get into this industry, because we simply need help. We need more people. And yes, everyone at the end of the day wants someone who's got experience, but they're also just simply losing time, right? They have all these open jobs, not enough people to get the work done. And if I can put my name on someone else and say, hey, they're not in cyber, but I think you should really hire them. I've talked to them a number of times. I know their work ethic. They're going to be a hardworking employee for you. That goes a long way.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference. Just the advocacy for that person. And I think you alluded to it earlier, just the advocating for yourself, and you got to be a little proactive, maybe push yourself, right? We're talking about, highly technical folks that, networking and some of that, getting out and socializing may be a little uncomfortable for a lot of folks.
That's okay.
Yeah, change.
That's okay. We're used to that. IT and cyber, we're a special breed. But one thing I will say is don't be intimidated, right? So if you take a look this real quick, we have all these people. Every word here like is a person that does this, and they specialize in this. So there's so many jobs. So don't be afraid to just dig into a domain in an area that you like. Traditional security environments, here's what they look like. Not to work too fast. Cloud's taken off into its own realm. You can focus on traditional network security. That is fine. That still exists today. If you're wanting to learn what's new and what's hot and what's happening now and what we're really trying to solve for, that's within the cloud security environment. But there's one thing that I would leave you with is learning those emerging technologies, because there's so much of a need around this. So everyone, it's a race in this area. So anything cloud related, DevSecOps with automation tools, API security, because everything talks to one another. Now with APIs, identity access management has always been around for years, but there's just a ton of innovation going on in that realm. And then the final bullet point, you'll probably hear a lot about AI and security related to ChatGPT. That is huge right now. But there's kind of two realms. The traditional network security technology still exists in a lot of these organizations. So you can adopt, and dig into traditional security ops, or you can get into DevSecOps with the cloud. There's so much to learn. Don't be afraid to just ask questions. The entire industry, no one's judging you. So just get involved and pick something to learn and try to be an expert at.
I generally give the advice that the Matt Petersons of the world are not worried about somebody new coming in and taking your job. There's enough work to go around for everybody. And in reality, you want those new people because it means it takes a couple things off of somebody else's plate, or there's double coverage of these things. I know, on-call situations are always tricky, right? It's one of the most frustrating parts for a lot of employers, for somebody who's on call over the weekend for incident response, and it's that same person week after week. So it's a really great way to bring new folks in to an organization, help reduce burnout and just attrition for your team. And there's a lot of pros that come along with it.
My first job was a SOC analyst, and that break fix support that I did, I learned so much about myself, about how to work with internal customers, how to fix things when a network is down. You learn a lot, and those lessons that I learned, I still apply today, believe it or not. So it may not be the job that you want, but there's always a job that you need to get in order to get into the industry. You won't regret any of it as long as you're willing to learn and put in the time.
As we said before we jumped on, 30 minutes goes fast. So in tradition, last question, what advice would you give for somebody? And we covered a lot of good advice today, but what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to level up their cybersecurity career?
Yeah, don't be afraid to get involved. You got to put yourself out there and network and participate and get involved in your local cybersecurity meetups. Go to these security conferences, create a name for yourself. That personal brand of who you are, creating, who it is that you are looking to be on LinkedIn is important, right? And just don't be afraid to really put yourself out there and get involved. Do your research, do your homework, and self learn as much as you possibly can in a given area. And if you decide to pivot later, that's okay. Being told no is okay. Or saying, you know what, I wanted to be a pen tester, I don't know if that's my passion. That's okay. Don't give up. Just don't give up. There's so many domains and areas that are available and that folks are hiring all throughout the country. You can do it. So if you just stick with it, have a passion for it, you'll find the right role for you.
That's fantastic advice. And Matt, I appreciate you joining us today. For those, Matt's an incredible human. He's done a great job. I think, he's offering, if you have interest or help I definitely take him up on it, because he's, has been a passionate leader, I think, just to help others break into this. So I encourage you to reach out. So thanks for joining us today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We got a couple great shows ahead of us, so stay tuned. We're playing with some of the dates and times, and just really trying to see where we get some great participation in this. But as always, thank everybody for joining for the week. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. And until next week, everybody have a good one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.